What time is it? It's time for another Every Other Wednesday.
Hello, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. Or good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are. Maybe it's Thursday for you.
You'll notice we have a different person here. Jeff Tobe is not with us today. Or we could say that's Jeff, and he has lengthened and colored his hair.
We have a special guest star.
You've seen the Mission Impossible thing where they...
Yeah, there you go.
The big reveal.
Yeah.
Exactly. That would be awesome if masks like that.
That's funny you say that. My son is wearing a prosthetic face in his job right now because he's appearing as Shrek in Shrek the Musical, and he has this whole prosthetic thing that he has to wear every day, and then he has to take it off every day, and the makeup and everything. Oh, it's a mess.
That's very cool. Yes, we have a special guest that we will get to. Mr. Tim Borys is here, coming to you from Alberta. Hey, folks, if you haven't changed the drop-down menu in the chat box, as you know, make sure you switch it to everyone. There's World Cup fever going on. Soccer/football is happening. So we want to know, who is your pick to take it all? Who do you think is going to win the World Cup? Please vote now. We will be.
Can I still vote? Kids. Can I still vote for Scotland? I mean,
yes.
I think anything's possible.
I think their odds are. Well,
Richard, I'll give you 1,001 odds.
Fritz wants Norway. He thinks Norway. Hopefully England, likely France. No Scotland, no party. All right, no Scotland, no party. Rob knows it.
England. Okay.
Rob knows it. Yeah.
Likely France. Strong. Argentina is strong.
For 2020, for 2030, Scotland is in.
2030, they're going all the way.
There you go.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Well, so Fritz and Rob have weighed in. Who else? Everybody else? Some people might be saying the world. What?
Who? The what? Yeah. The what? How? You would have to be under an armchair to.
My perspective, I have lived in the United States all of my life so far, and I cannot remember the World Cup being as big a deal in the past as it has been this year.
Well, you've never hosted it too. Or have you?
You think that could be it?
It could definitely be part of it. Well, it's also growing. It's like the Olympics. Back in the day, like in the 70s, 80s, the Olympics was run out of like someone's dining room table. And now they spend, $2 billion in the opening ceremonies.
I don't think that's true. I don't.
Okay, so far England has got more votes than anyone in our poll.
England. They must
this is all hopefuls. All right. Well, look, we don't have too many people who want to talk to us about their World Cup desires. So let's go ahead and get started. What do you think, Mike? You ready?
I'm ready.
Sanjay?
I'm ready. Richard,
Tim?
Why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm Richard Haddon. Welcome. Glad to be here. Glad that all of you are here. I'm an author and professional speaker. I wrote Contented Cows Still Give Better Milk, and I speak about the new world of work. I live in Jacksonville, Florida, and that's where I am today, where the temperature is roughly that of the surface of the sun.
Excellent.
It's hot. Damn hot. Isn't that a line from Good Morning Vietnam?
It's hot.
Yeah.
My name is Sanjay Nath. I am a speaker and author. Like the Yahoos on this call, I am based in Oakville, Ontario, which is outside of Toronto, and I focus on leadership and performance. Mr. Kerr, I'll send it to you.
I am Michael Kerr. I'm coming to you as usually from the Canadian Rockies in spectacular Canmore, Alberta. I speak on inspiring workplace culture, leadership, and humor in the workplace, and I'm the author of 9 books. And today is, official timestamp, July 8th, 2026. The theme days for today are, because I know you want to know, it's Video Game Day. It is Math 2.0 Day to celebrate the intersection between math and technology. It's Coca-Cola Day, Freezer Pop Day, and Scud Day. Scud being an acronym for Savor the Comic, Unplug the Drama, which I kind of like. The official Scud Day. Speaking of theme days, this Saturday, July 11th, there's a very important theme day coming up. It is, I hope she's here today. It is Carol's birthday.
Woo! Happy birthday in advance, Carol.
Happy birthday in advance, Carol. Is Carol here? I hope she is. She's
I
always
do too. Here.
She's always here. She has better attendance than we do. So, Mike,
Carol, are you here?
Yes. I'm going to ask a question. Yes. Moving forward, when you give the theme days, I'd like you to, moving forward, combine them somehow. So, for example, today you could have said, I'm going to take a Coca-Cola, put it in the freezer, and have a freezer pop. So then you're cutting I want you to combine them as best you can.
And then calculate the volume to celebrate math.
Yes.
And
exactly.
unfortunately, Carol is not here. I'm a little concerned.
No,
I'll check
that
with Carol
sucks.
later, but she might just
Oh.
be getting ready for the party.
Okay, we have to introduce. We've got Tim just waiting here.
And I'm just going to say one thing, and that is that before we reconvene next, Michael Kerr and I are going to see each other in person in beautiful Canmore, Alberta.
In my driveway. We're going to meet in my driveway.
That's right.
Ironically, I will be in Calgary, which is, for those who know geography, about an hour away from Canmore the day before, and I'm not going to see either one of them because, well, I mean, for obvious reasons. Anyways, continue.
Nobody cares about this. They just. All right. I care about it.
Tell us about this gentleman who is standing here patiently.
This gentleman in this lovely jacket here is waiting anxiously to speak with us. Borys. Tim, I've known Tim for several years. As Sanjay has, he hangs out in Calgary, very close to Canmore here, a fellow speaker. He is an organizational performance consultant, executive coach, speaker, and host of the Working Well podcast, which is something we certainly talk about here. He is a former elite athlete, and I'd love to hear some stories about this, and a New York Yankees draft pick. How cool is that? You were a pitcher, You were a pitcher, right, Tim? Yes, a pitcher of a picture. He brings a high-performance lens to leadership, culture, and sustainable human performance. Tim helps leaders and organizations connect human thriving to business results, building environments where people think clearly, adapt faster, and perform at higher levels without burning out. So these are some of the topics we're going to be focusing on this morning, obviously. And he has also authored 5 books on personal performance and leadership. So Tim, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is amazing. And Richard's the only one I haven't met in person. And so,
well, come to Canmore a week from Saturday.
Yes,
and we can fix that.
Well, and I usually spend half the year out in Canmore in the winter. I'm there 3 to 4 days over the winter each week. So, my kids used to ski race, so we rent a place in Canmore for 4 to 6 months every winter.
You know what? It's cheaper to stay at Mike Kerr's house.
It is. Yes, it probably would be.
Yes,
it's well, I don't know.
Then I'd have to spend so much time with Mike.
That's the downside. That's the downside.
See, and this is why we invited Tim, folks, because he understands. He
fits right in here.
Right. And not only that, he's a subject matter expert as well. So
right. So tell us about the subject matter of which you are an expert.
Let's actually
what's your thing? If somebody said, gosh, what is really important to you in terms of culture in the world of work?
I think there's I'm going to jump in. Before we go there, let's go higher level and go, how do you define culture? I mean, this whole podcast we've been doing now for 5-6 years is all around the theme of culture. And we've never had a strict definition of culture. And I don't think there is one because it morphs and stuff. But give us a working definition of what it means when Tim Borys says culture. What do you refer to?
Yeah, the most simple definition I can come up with is that culture is what gets recognized, reinforced, and rewarded on a day-to-day basis by leaders and people across the organization. Yeah. So you can have your advertised culture that the marketing department throws out. We're a best place to work. We won all these awards. And meanwhile, people are like, I hate my job. I want to stick a pencil in my eye and every day. And that's like the reality of the day-to-day life of an employee is the culture, whether you recognize it or call it that or not.
Everyone has interesting with culture because you can say what culture is all you want, but what culture really is just what happens organically in the organization.
Yeah, and the further apart
those two are, the worse.
The two are, yeah, the more stress and burnout and frustration in the organization.
I think that should be an employee engagement question from now on. On a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to want to stick a pencil into your eye when you think about your workplace?
Or how likely you want to stick a pencil in one of your coworkers' eyes?
Or one of your coworkers' eyes.
Right?
Your boss' eye, yes.
Tim, question then. You've worked with many organizations, and I'm a numbers nerd, so I'm going to ask you to pick a number, and this is not scientific proof by any stretch, but how often is that gap very big, do you find, where people are advertising one culture and they're living another?
80 plus,
Mhm.
90 plus % of the
I
time.
would guess 80.
Yeah. And it depends on who you ask in the organization. There are a lot of senior executive leaders that you ask, oh, we have a great culture. You talk to the frontline staff, they're like, no, we don't.
No.
I'm constantly on the job boards, looking for jobs every day.
And then the big question is why?
Yeah. Are you saying why is there that disconnect?
Yeah, why is there that disconnect?
I go back to the what I call the human operating system, and how companies have operations dialed in, their business strategy, they know what they want to accomplish, their financials, within reason, they have it dialed in. There's always room for improvement. But what I feel gets missed is the humans that are actually delivering the work. How do we create an environment where they perform at their best and thrive? And every study out there you look at is like healthy, happy, thriving humans are better for business. They're nicer to be around. They're not miserable jerks, toxic jerks, as Mike would say. But we know that, yet there's a disconnect. Companies are saying, "Oh, we've checked all these boxes. We have a great benefits plan. We do this, we do that, and HR is doing all this stuff." Meanwhile, executive leadership is not seeing the connection. They're not using that as a strategic lever, whichever one you want to say, across the organization to produce sustainable high performance. It's like a people mill, churn through them. If you don't like it, well, leave. And I see there's a better way.
Yeah, the disconnect is staggering, and it's even when it comes down to specific questions. We see this in surveys, right? You've probably seen this, Tim, where it's just like they live on two different worlds often. The management team, the bosses versus the frontline.
Yeah, and you wonder how they can look at the same thing and see such two different things.
Totally, right?
Yeah, it's like the thing that was going around on the internet a few years ago. You look at this and it looks blue to somebody and it looks pink to somebody else.
The dress, yeah.
And all of that, yeah. And speaking of what, when you mentioned, if you don't like it, you can leave. The chief technology officer at Microsoft, Botherman, I can't remember his name because it's not worth it to remember, but he recently, they've had some problems. They've had some problems at Microsoft. And about less than a year ago, he said, "Hey, if you don't like it here, you can just leave." Well, he's suddenly done an about face because, their stock price has dropped. They've lost $600 billion in market value. Can you imagine what each of us could do with $600 billion? Yeah. And, all these things happen. And he said, "Oh, well, maybe we have, we haven't been looking at this the right way." And I thought, gosh, it takes something like that to get the attention of the chief technology officer at a chiefly technological company, worldwide company. And it's just, I mean, these people have to be smart. They wouldn't be in the positions that they're in. They have to have some critical thinking skills, and yet so many of them seem to be missing what the four of us yahoos think is really obvious. Maybe I should just say the three of us yahoos. I don't want to include you in that, Tim, unless you want to give permission to be included in that group.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, yeah, it's okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Rob has an interesting question, and it's Rob always has interesting questions. He says, "I'd be interested in Tim's take on high-profile sports teams, management turnover, and how that impacts culture. In top-level football managers seem to have a tenure measured in months. The next manager has to do things. It's a little bit like the UK prime ministers, to be fair, Rob. The next manager has to do things differently. How effective is that for teams in the longer term?"
Short answer is it's not.
Yeah.
It's not effective for teams. And we see this in business a lot as well. No one wants to take the rebuilding years. No one wants to do the work needed to build the right team. The companies are on quarterly results. You look at teams that go on a losing streak for a few games, and then they're calling for them to fire the manager. It's like, well, like, yeah, sometimes the manager does need to go because they're not delivering the results, but it rarely is that a short-term thing. It's a longer-term issue that just hasn't been dealt with. And, in sports teams, I always go back to like John Wooden versus Bobby Knight. There, some leaders, some managers are that military toxic leader, just drive people into the ground, and they might win championships. No one can argue that Bobby Knight didn't do a good job, but how many players are showing up to stand up behind him? And it's like how many of his players showed up at his funeral, probably, or would show up, where versus John Wooden, almost to the person, everyone you talk about says he was the most phenomenal human. Yes, he worked us hard and he challenged us, but he was doing it from a personal and professional growth standpoint. He wanted to help people improve, and that was the foundation of it. And I look at that in business, and you see great leaders that do that. They care about their people and business results. They generate that sustainable high performance, and they do it consistently. But companies and even sports teams, the ones that do build that legacy within the culture within the organization. So when a new leader comes in, and you've all heard, like everyone's heard, hire for culture. When you come in, yes, leaders can make changes, but if they try and make changes that are in complete opposition to the culture, it can be really challenging. And that's where they often don't last. And some leave, some get fired because they haven't been able to change the culture. So I think there's such a, culture becomes so important, but people don't recognize what's driving that culture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And for people who don't follow lacrosse, those two managers you referenced are what teams were they associated with, Tim?
They were college basketball coaches.
Yeah.
Who doesn't follow lacrosse?
Yes,
I know. It's Canadians' national sport,
By the way, that
officially,
I find that very interesting too, because we know this as well. Like a lot of times, changing a manager or a team head coach in pick your sport, lacrosse, football, etc. Same people, and all of a sudden they rally around this new coach, and they go from a severely losing team to a ridiculous win streak, and nothing's changed really, other than a new person's put in. And I think it supports what you're saying, Tim, that it's not necessarily a sustainable change. Like it's like a shot of it. It's an endorphin rush, is what it is. Is something's changing, but then when the dust settles, nothing's changed. And so it's not just replacing the person. Can you make a systemic change that people look at things differently, they think differently, and therefore act differently? I think that's more important than bringing a new manager, because all systems work. The militant system does work for the right culture if it's the right fit. The warm, fuzzy culture works as well for the right thing. But again, if you misfit them and you put the militant culture around the warm, fuzzy guy, you're not getting very far.
I've said that to many leaders. I've talked to a lot of executive leaders that are like, this whole, HR crap, whatever. Like, I pay people well. They should just shut up, show up and do their work. And I'm like, great. If that's your belief, like, don't live into that. Don't pretend you're a best place to work. Say,
right.
This
place really sucks. But we pay well. If you want that, come join us. Yeah.
The marketing department is, we are an acquired taste. That's what. That's the brand.
No, but I think one thing that we sometimes don't talk about enough is that to that CEO or whoever that person is that we're talking about, what they need and what they value may be vastly different from what the majority of the people in the workforce value, and yet people still see things through their own eyes. And it just, to me, it's just foolish to say, well, we're going to create an organization that I would like, whether or not anybody else does.
But then that's the thing is, as long as, to your point, Tim, you encourage people to lean into that. So when they're doing the hiring process, that should be up there. We're not best place to work. We are whatever, aggressive, annoying, we sleep, or what. It doesn't matter what the culture is, but you got to be transparent and have people give people the option to opt in or to say this isn't a good fit for me. But you
Mhm.
can't try to be things to all people.
Right.
Otherwise, you just fall flat and everyone gets pissed off.
And to Richard's point, and this whole idea of the disconnect between management and leaders, CEOs, and what's actually happening, and your comment, Richard, about them looking at things through their own lens. Again, it does go back to a systemic issue here because these people have obviously worked their way up the ranks. They've either been hired or promoted into these key leadership positions, and so their viewpoint, their perspective, their behaviors, their values is what is being recognized and promoted in that organization.
Yeah. But it still may be very much a minority view. But yeah, it's what's been promoted.
Yeah.
We have a couple of good comments and questions here. First from Stephen. And Stephen is a professor. Stephen likes bullet points. What are 3 key things a senior manager needs to do to manage culture?
First thing that comes to mind is define what culture you want.
Okay.
What is it?
Not necessarily define what culture is, but define what culture you want. Let's assume people understand, even if they can't define it and they can't articulate it, they do understand what culture is.
Yeah, and once you know what the culture you want to create is, then you start recognizing, reinforcing, and rewarding those behaviors on a day-to-day basis, calling out the things that are in opposition to it, and highlighting the things that are. And that's very simple way to say to build culture, but most leaders don't. They're focused on the business outcomes, not necessarily the behaviors that drive the business outcomes, and how to curate those on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that was one thing. Stephen's asking for 3.
I'll give Tim at least 2, possibly 3.
That was 2. I counted 2. And by the way,
define
that's in Canadian.
Reward.
That's Canadian numbers.
Reward and punish.
Okay, all right.
And you don't, Richard, you don't have to be a professor to love bullet points.
The third one would be have fun.
You know what?
Have fun. Okay.
For you, I love bullets as well.
Fine. Now, I also like what Anna, Anna brings up a little pushback to Sanjay, saying she's seen an entire ship's company, that is everybody on board, completely change under the leadership of a different captain. I think that's not the only example that some of us are aware of where things really have changed because an iconic leader takes over from someone else and is able to really get people to rally around some central theme or some central way of doing things.
And this is, I think, appropriate here. I think it's a real story. I don't think it's urban legend, and it has to do with baseball, so it's right up Tim's alley. There was a manager, and this was, I want to say, in the 40s or 50s, and it was having all kinds of dysfunctionality with the team, and everyone was pushing and hating each other. And so what the manager did was he became an aggressive jerk to everyone on the team. And with the rationale, and it worked, with the rationale of the team coming together to hate the manager. And that brought them together and they actually started winning. And then he came clean afterward and said, yeah, I did it on purpose. So that's what people need is a sense of a bigger picture of what are we rallying towards? And do I have, my compadres in war with me here? How do we move from point A to point B?
Yeah, and that goes back to mission, vision, values, and not just a plaque on the wall that's got dust on it that no one can recall. Like, do you have a clear, compelling vision to work towards as a leader and also as a company? And what are the values that you're living into? And when we talk about those leadership behaviors, what culture do you want? How do you recognize, reinforce, reward it? That comes back down to values. What values do you believe in? What do you want yourself and the organization to embody? And for most, I'd say the large majority of companies, some people may be able to tell values, 1 or 2 of them, but they probably can't tell you how those values dictate their behavior on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring that up. So one of the things that my company does is employee surveys, and we're working with a client right now, and we have a fairly standard survey, but we can customize it for different things. And one client who's been working with us for several years said, we want to ask a few extra questions this year, and the overall theme of the questions would be, how are we living out our values and our culture? Which I think is a great thing to pursue in a survey. And so, in this year's survey, we're going to actually put their value statement and something about their culture and so forth, and then ask people, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you experiencing what we talk about? I mean, there's a lot of work that will have to be done, but I think it's commendable that this organization says we at least want to know. We know that there can be a difference between what happens and what we say, and we want to see how far how big that chasm is, so we can perhaps bring it back together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Sanjay. I was just a couple of people mentioning Zappos here. So
Yeah.
on that note, Richard, it reminds me, I don't know if they still do this, but they used to do. I've got one on my shelf behind me here.
You don't have any shelves behind you.
A culture book. It's behind this. A culture book that the employees would write. And they didn't edit it. So if employees had negative comments, even those were included in the book, but it was in your words, all of our employees are going to write what our values mean to them. How do they see them in action? How do they see them being lived out day in and day out, which is, I think, a very cool exercise to do. But to actually turn it into a book that you then give out to people is
Rob's gaslighting me here.
To have that culture where you are like openly identifying the disconnect, right? Yeah. And saying, because every organization recognize we're not perfect, or even if you are perfect, times change, technology changes, policies change, and what was perfect a week ago may not be perfect now. So to give people the power to call it out, and more importantly, not just to call it out, but hopefully management itself looks at it and goes, I thought we were like this, but we're really being perceived like this. How do we close that gap? I think is a phenomenal exercise for an organization to do, and really helps with the trajectory forward.
There's a great company in Calgary, fintech startup. Well, I guess they're a scale up now, called Helsum. I don't know if you know them, but they have done a very similar thing with the brand book, and they call it The Way. I just put a link in the chat there. They've done a phenomenal job in promoting that. And this is how we are. This is what we do. This is how we show up. If you like it, great. Let's talk. If not, that's okay too. There are lots of other companies.
Go find something that does work for you. Yeah.
It reminds me of Mandalorian. This is the way. I don't know if anyone follows that.
Yes.
Oh, such a nerd, Sanjay. Hey, coming up soon it's Embrace Your. I think, when is it? Oh, maybe Monday is Embrace Your Geekness Day, Sanjay. So,
isn't that your birthday too? That's weird.
It could be. Hey, I want to shift gears for a minute here. Tim, you talk about your concept, the human operating system.
Yeah.
Which is
the
a very
HOS
cool,
as opposed to the iOS or
HOS,
the DOS.
yes, iOS, which is a very cool framing, and obviously an important focus when we're talking about workplace culture. But we're in this age, of course, where everybody is talking about and concerned about AI, which is kind of in many ways the opposite of a human operating system. So what do you think has to happen in workplace cultures right now with the advent of AI to I guess maintain a great culture, create that sustainable culture, and make sure the human operating system is still front and center?
Yeah, we're seeing that right now. Just even the starts of it, the pushback on AI from employees, the rollbacks of layoffs, because companies are realizing that yes, AI has fantastic potential as a technology, but humans still need to be in the picture. And when you're talking about rolling out AI in an organization, there's the technical aspect, but that's small compared to
a minor thing compared,
the human change aspect. And yes, there's the whole change management side, which is another aspect of it. But with the human operating system, I try and I always say my Venn diagram is human performance, leadership and business strategy and how those all fit together. So my background is in sports and athletics, and I was a strength conditioning coach, and I worked with elite athletes, and then I moved into the fitness industry and as a personal trainer, and all my clients were stressed out, burnt out corporate leaders and entrepreneurs having heart attacks in their 40s. And so I took some of those athlete principles and brought them into how leaders can bring or perform at a high level. So they'd say, "Oh, this is cool. Can you come in and talk to my team?" And so then we got into running corporate fitness centers and then running workplace wellness programs and consulting on organizational strategy. But at each level, I realized that we have the individual level. Every individual is responsible for doing the actions they need to perform at their best. You know, fitness, nutrition, sleep, hydration, all those table stakes. Then there's the leadership level, which leaders are responsible for helping the members of their team thrive and building the culture where people can perform at their best, mentally, physically, socially, skill-based, organizationally. And then at the organization side, what are the systems, structures, policies, processes that operationalize well-being and performance across the organization? And companies have all those processes and systems on the business operations side, on the finance, the org structure and everything, but they're not looking at each of those levels through a human performance lens. And so with the human operating system, especially with AI coming in, that change, I believe the more tech focused and AI focused the company becomes, the more we need to look through that human lens to say, how do those mix? And there's so many great examples of being able to help humans manage the change mentally, physically, socially, organizationally. Like, yes, roles will be replaced, but that doesn't mean layoffs need to happen. In fact, there's a great study from a few years ago, IKEA. They replaced 8,500 call center workers, support call workers with an AI chatbot, but they didn't lay off anyone. They repurposed them around the business. A big percentage of them went into becoming, interior designers and consulting over the phone and video with clients to help them build out their space. And they added $1 billion in extra revenue to the company without laying off any jobs. They just repurposed them. But right now, a lot of companies are like, great, AI is going to replace this. We can save this much on our bottom line. Let's cut this many employees, instead of saying and I call that's a reductive change rather than an additive change. Say, hey, we can have this efficiency. What can we have these humans do that's more beneficial and productive for them and the business? That's a very different conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
thank you for all of that, Tim, and that story is so cool and so powerful. And I'm looking forward to reading a business story where Company X implemented a major AI strategy, and because of that, we were able to hire 1,000 additional employees. Wouldn't that be an awesome story?
Yeah.
I love it, just again from a numbers perspective, and that's so often organizations think of how do we improve the top line? How do we improve the top line? And that's not the question. The question is, how do you improve the bottom line? Because if you'd be making lots of money, but if you're losing more than you're making, you don't have a sustainable business model. So I love what you were just saying there with the whole IKEA example is, you know what, they were able to increase the top line and therefore without additive expenses, which increases the bottom line, which is again much more important. So you've increased the value to the customer, and therefore it increased sales and it ripples through. When you're increasing the bottom line, there's a handful of ways to do it. You increase the top line, you decrease expenses, or a combination of both. Those are the only options. So this is what most people have synonymously done with AI, said, hey, AI reduces expenses. And that's sort of the default, but you've just offered a completely different lens on looking at it and thinking about it differently, going, hey, AI can increase, the income, which to me is very cool.
Yeah, and Anna brings up a great point about there's so many failed AI pilots because they're not considering the people. Um, it's particularly around addressing what it means for their role.
Yeah.
And it's like people are scared. Like they're hearing all these horror stories of like they're gonna be out of a job, and I don't know. And there's, from what I've seen in most companies, not a lot of clear communication around,
Right.
hey, this is what we're doing. This is what it's going to mean for you. Here's the approach we're taking, other than there's going to be layoffs. Deal with it. Like
Yeah.
that tends to be the common
those things
narrative
probably
right now.
exist. Those things probably exist, Tim, that you've described, but we don't read about them. We don't hear about them because those are not the things that people want to, I guess, want to put out on in the media. I think though that it has to come from whoever's making these decisions has to intentionally, deliberately say, we want to do this, but we don't want to do it at the expense of the human element of our organization. I think you have to be intentional about that. And you have talked about, and there are many other examples of those who have said that, and they've been able to implement and to take advantage of the benefits of AI without destroying their organization.
Yeah.
But also, I think the people who are making those decisions, they're not going to lose their jobs. And so they certainly, I guess you can't expect them, unless they have a great deal of empathy, you can't expect them to look at it the same way that those people who are not making those decisions have.
Yeah. And Tim spoke to something else there, I think, that is such a huge need right now for leaders, and that is to manage the uncertainty that's going on in the world right now. Not just with AI, there's lots of uncertainty out there. We've talked about this in the program before with some of our guests, but uncertainty is huge right now, and I think it's every leader's responsibility to manage that uncertainty in an effective, healthy way.
Yeah.
Well, when we talk about I always differentiate between wellness and well-being. So I always talk about well-being, but whenever you hear wellness, especially at the executive level, people's eyes gloss over and they're like, oh yeah, that's an HR thing. And I always differentiate. Wellness is the tactics that you use to ideally improve well-being and performance. But well-being is the outcome. And if you're checking the boxes on wellness, but you don't have well-being, that means there's a disconnect in the system. And when I talk to executive leaders, they're like, yeah, but we're not running a country club here. We have business outcomes. I'm like, great. You have a fiduciary duty to your shareholders to generate the highest returns possible. And we know that happens from thriving people. So get your shit into gear and help your people thrive, and your business will improve. But there's not seeing the disconnect between all this stuff that HR is doing and the change management work and the actions of leaders, that culture that leaders in the organization is building on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. So on that note, what do you think? I know you talk a lot about sustainability, obviously, with the human operating system and long-term productivity and success. And burnout. So what do you think, Tim? I'm just curious, what do you think is the single or maybe a couple of the underlying root causes of burnout in organizations?
I think it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, the disconnect between the advertised culture and the real culture. If you're all those perks in the world, like the, free lunches and the, massage benefits and spot bonuses for pay, they don't matter if your boss is a toxic jerk.
Right.
Like, or they're band-aids. And, I just did a recent session where I was like, quoted Taylor Swift and said, for band-aids don't fix bullet holes. Like it's, companies are putting band-aids over band-aids over band-aids and not addressing the sucking chest wound that is underneath that. And
is that a lyric in a Taylor Swift song?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Now
I'm curious to know how that would be weaved into
the great philosopher.
I'm proud to
Taylor
say
Swift.
I had no idea, but I do like the line.
Rob has a question for you, Tim. What do you think is the number one observable trait associated with burnout? In other words, what should people be on the lookout for?
Great question.
Great question. Yeah. And now this probably touches on a touchy topic, is people there's this normalization of clinical terms. People are like, I'm depressed. I'm like, well, you're probably not depressed. You're just a bit down right now. Or I'm burnt out. And most people, like, burnout is a very
It's a
serious
thing.
thing.
Yeah,
It's
the
a
thing.
very serious thing where you
Yeah.
basically, if you're struggling to get out of bed on a day-to-day basis and you're losing all motivation for life, like that, it's on the verge of clinical sounds. Now, with that being said, stress, the chronic stress that a lot of people are facing, if left unaddressed, can turn into burnout. Yeah, when people are ready to just leave their job because they can't put up with another day again, I know people getting breaking out in hives from stress because they, like, as soon as they think about, the Sunday scaries we've heard, it's like when people can't sleep on Sunday night because they know they have to go into work on Monday, and that's so stressful, then yeah, absolutely, they're probably burnt out or very close to it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
people will have a stressful day or a stressful week, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so burnt out," and it's like, no, you probably just not
Yeah,
taking.
burnout is much more systemic and kind of long term kind of thing. One thing
Well,
that I sometimes think is, if someone has a one particular pattern, they may not be a superstar, but they're a good solid performer, and you see that dropping off and it just doesn't come back. That could, to paraphrase Jeff Foxworthy, you could have burnout if that's the case.
you might be burned out.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
If you've got a refrigerator on your front porch, you might be burnt out.
You might be a little burned out. And I love too with the burnout topic here. I love that the World Health Organization recognized it as an official thing and as a work-related phenomenon, because their definition, what that did is it very much put the onus on the fact that it is on the onus of senior leadership. It is the culture in workplaces that creates burnout. So it is not the employee's fault that burnout is happening. So we can't have these workplaces where leaders are just saying, okay, come on, suck it up, take a few yoga classes and remember to breathe.
And what's the logic of let's have a bunch of burned out people here because I know we'll be able to make really good stuff.
Yeah. What is the thinking there?
When this goes back to those three levels.
Go ahead, Tim.
I was just gonna say, it goes back to those three levels. Like, yes, the organization and the culture and what leaders are doing on a day-to-day basis creates that, but also on the individual level, there are a lot of people that bring some of that on themselves. They don't set boundaries. They assume that this has to happen, and they take on extra things they're not taking care of themselves. They're not sleeping. They're not eating properly, hydrating. All those things add to burnout. If you're unhealthy, you are way more susceptible to the negative impacts of stress and will probably get to burnout faster. So individually, we have power that we can do, but the healthiest person and the most dialed in person is going to not thrive in a toxic system.
Yeah. I love what Gooder Sunglasses, small G, Godd, small R, has done about this topic. They went after this whole culture of busyness, as they called it. And one of the things they found in their research was that one of the biggest percentages of the reasons people were working too hard, extending themselves, doing long hours, was and the phrase they used was they were hustling for self-worth. That they felt they had to do it
for their own sake,
internally, for their own self-worth, that they had to overwork themselves and end up burning out.
Well, and I've also seen many leaders that are like their definition of productive is having your bum in seat for a certain number of hours a day. And it's like, we know that people are just not effective when you have to sit in front of a screen for 10 hours a day.
Yeah. Totally. Right. And again, even with that idea that some individuals are hustling for self-worth, in my mind, it still always goes back to culture. There's a good chance they are hustling for self-worth because somehow you have incentivized it in your culture.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Look at the time.
We are rapidly running out
I
of
told
time.
I told you this time was going to go fast.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. I'm the one who predicted.
When did you ever tell me that, Richard? We've been doing this for 5 years.
45 minutes ago. 45 minutes ago. So The next time that we assemble will be on July the 22nd. Yeah. Okay.
It's math day. That was very
Very
good.
confident in that.
I really should lean on my buddy Sanjay, who knows these higher math order
Right. 14 plus
kinds of
8.
equations there. But yeah, so the 22nd, we'll be back, and we don't know who all will be here, but we'll be all here. Whoever is here,
whoever
will be here.
will be here. Tim,
That's right.
do you have a final thought to leave
Yes.
folks with?
Look at your own business, your own team through the lens, the human performance lens, that human operating system. And happy to chat if you have questions.
And how can we chat with you?
TimBorys.com, LinkedIn. You can find me there. Yeah.
You can go to we can go to your house, I assume.
I'm not on Snapchat or TikTok or anything like that.
Borys. Borys. Very good. Okay. Well, listen, thank you, everybody. Great to see you. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Tim. Thank you to our
and as we say as we close here, Tim, we'll see everybody when?
Every other
Wednesday. Bye.
Bye, all. Thank you.